Businesswoman and former Happy Valley Mayor Lori Chavez-DeRemer is now a U.S. Congressperson-elect. The Republican defeated Democrat Jamie McCloud-Skinner to represent the newly redrawn 5th Congressional District. Chavez-DeRemer's victory helped Republicans retake the House by a slim margin. Lori Chavez-DeRemer, welcome back to Eye on Northwest Politics, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Ken. I am happy to be here to visit with you today and talk to Oregonians.
Well, you spent the last couple of weeks off and on in Washington, D.C. for orientation. What do you think will be the biggest part of your transition?
Well, certainly we are across the country. We're going to have a lot of back and forth to Oregon. My goal and plan is to be in the district as often as possible, which will be every single week, to talk to Oregonians, talk to Oregon's 5th District, and keep the promises that I said on the trail. I want to make sure that we're representing all of Oregon here in DC. I have a great freshman class. It's exciting to get to know them here and know who I'll be working with, as well as the current members. They've been gracious and kind. Part of the orientation is where we sit bipartisan. We're sitting with Democrats and Republicans. We stay in the same hotel. We're in the halls having lunch together in some of the open sessions. And then we break out into, learning the ins and outs of where our offices will be. We get to do that tomorrow morning. So there's a lot to learn just on a basic procedural level. And then next week, I'll do some more deeper dive into some policy training. So we're excited. It's going fast, but this is an important time, I think, for Oregon and for this country to know if we can serve our country as everyday people. I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, I was a mayor of one of the fastest growing cities. And I think that that's the change in the new face of congressional leaders. We're just everyday people doing hard work for our own districts and making sure that government works for them.
Anything surprise you so far?
Not really. I had spent a lot of time in DC before as mayor. I would come back twice a year to make sure that I could meet with our own Oregon congressional delegation and visit with them on the issues that were affecting small communities. So I had spent some time here. Of course, Oregon's history is great, but America's history is great too. And so not really, just so many different, I will tell you what surprises me. Now that I think about it, there are a lot of new young members. We're seeing members in their 30s and their 40s. They have full families back home in their states. I have to tell you, I am impressed with that they're willing to sacrifice their time to serve their communities when they have families at home. So I am actually out of the freshman class, one of the older members out of the freshman class. We're seeing a lot of young, intelligent people who are going to represent America.
There's been a lot of talk about Kevin McCarthy perhaps becoming the next House Speaker. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly when we were here just a little over a week ago before Thanksgiving, there was a vote in conference to support the speaker. I am supporting Leader McCarthy for several reasons. One, he was super supportive, not only in my particular race, but he was supportive about widening that Republican tent. I mentioned that on the trail. And I believed him. And it wasn't only talk, he walked the walk. And now he's even proving that more on the conference floor. We just passed the rules for the conference, very open to some active debate on how we would follow the rules for the Republican conference. And he was open to all sorts of ideas. So I think he's going to be the next Speaker of the House, and I'm glad to support him.
What committees do you want and why?
A lot of the freshman members have been talking about the committees, and there's a couple things to consider. One, where our expertise lies or where we've spent some of our experiences. But the other thing is what is important to our districts and what they asked for. It's not just really about what I want to do. As mayor, I was often tasked with being on transportation and infrastructure committees because I think there was a voice for the fastest growing city in Oregon for 10 years and how we build that out. I am seeking to be on transportation and infrastructure. I think that that's key for Oregon. In all the growth that we're seeing. Also, Ways and Means, it is an A committee, but with a healthcare subcommittee component, and having 18 years experience of being in the healthcare industry and being a business owner, I think I can lend myself to that committee as well. So those are some of the focuses. Agriculture is important. I know Congressman Cliff Bentz is on natural resources. We want to make sure that we share the love, but not double up on some of those committees. And of course, Veterans Affairs is important as well. So, it's not our choice, but we can ask for, they are actively seeking where we want to be. And so we're having meetings now with the steering committee, which is made up of quite a few different members of Congress and even somebody from the freshman class to have a voice in that. So we've pitched it, and we won't have those assignments until we're back in January.
Big news happened last week. A federal jury convicted Stuart Rose, the leader of the Oath Keepers, of seditious conspiracy related to what happened on January 6th. Do you agree with that verdict? And just what are your thoughts about the prosecutions?
I haven't followed that verdict. So I really don't have an opinion on that one.
What do you think about Donald Trump running for president again?
Well, he announced that was a couple weeks ago after the election. There's been some talk here about what everybody's going to do and what's the support. But I'll tell you what, I think the Republican Party is going to have several people running for the president of the United States. We're 700 days away. As freshmen, we get here. That's been the question that some people have asked. I think we're going to see a lot of Republicans running, and we'll see if he becomes the top of the ticket for the Republican Party. I will support the nominee, but at this point, I think it's wide open for us to make those decisions early.
Oregonians voted for new gun restrictions with Measure 114, just as we've seen several more mass shootings nationally. Do we need more gun control, especially on the federal level?
We had this conversation, Ken, you and I, on the trail. I have addressed this several times on the mental health portion of it. As I mentioned, my husband and I, we own and operate a couple of drug-resistant depression clinics. And, it's such a main factor in this issue. And I think that that's something that we need to address as a whole. Again, I am law-abiding citizens should have their Second Amendment right protected, absolutely. But addressing gun control through that without addressing the mental health crisis and, the criminal behavior that we're seeing, I think is just a bigger discussion. Oregon is having that discussion on 114. It's not always the same, but when you think about what the issue is, what we ask ourselves is Measure 114 going to solve the crisis? And it looks like that's going to be tied up in court for a little bit. But I think there's more to address than just outright gun control and not protecting our Second Amendment right.
Got about a minute left, and your victory did help Republicans retake the House. But the Senate, the White House, they're still controlled by the Democrats. Is bipartisanship still possible in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time as, there in Oregon. That was one of the things that I focused on as mayor. You're a nonpartisan mayor. You're representing everybody in your city, and we have to do the same here. I have visited with Congresswoman-elect Andrea Salinas, Congresswoman-elect Val Hoyle. That's going to be important to address some of these issues. We don't have, as Republicans, the White House. We don't have the Senate. So, doing good work for the people, that's the question that they ask us. Can we continue our promises with the values that we have set on the trail? And can we get government to work for the people? That will be my focus. That will be my goal. And that has been consistent with how I do business. I'm a pragmatic, thoughtful leader. I will make a foundational decision on many things, but I will always reach across the aisle to make sure that I'm listening to the other side and then make those decisions.
Congresswoman-elect Lori Chavez-DeRemer, one of the first Latinas elected to Congress from Oregon, along with Andrea Salinas, who you mentioned. So thanks for being on Eye on Northwest Politics, and good luck come January.
Thanks, Ken. Have a good day.
You too.